Welcome back to the Shop Fabrication Nation. I wanted to make a quick video over my DoAll bandsaw. So I bought this saw about 3 years ago. It was one of the first purchases I made when I moved to this shop, and it's been one of the best investments I have ever made. It's done me well, and I have used the crap out of it. I use that bandsaw for, I would say, every single job that I've had here in the shop. I can't really think of a job that I've had that I didn't have to use that bandsaw. So it is probably the single most beneficial tool, I say, between that saw and my welder and various grinders and things. That saw has been one of the single most important tools here in the shop. But it's a new day, and we will be purchasing a brand new saw. It's a big milestone for the shop. It is going to be the first brand new piece of equipment in the shop. So it took a while for it to hit me that I needed a new saw, because this one's done good. I haven't had any problems with it, and it's done really well. But one day I was using it, and the pulley for the belt, it flew off, it hit the belt guard, and then it kind of dropped on the floor. And then I was out of commission. I mean, I couldn't do anything after that. I had to take some time, sit down, and get it fixed, because I had to have it up and running, and there were several cuts that I was going to have to make for this job, and there was just no way around it. So I spent a couple hours messing with it, getting the belt pulley back on, tightening it up properly, and then adjusting. What it was that the motor was just not properly adjusted, and I think the motor had kind of vibrated a little bit loose and causing that wheel to not be aligned with the belt. And whenever it's not aligned, it pushes it forces it to come off the shaft, and that's what happened. So I've got this fly here that is like attacking me. So I got that all fixed. I got back on the job. I was able to make my cuts. I was really careful for the rest of the cuts that I was making. I haven't had a problem since then, but that really got me thinking that if I end up losing this saw, like I'm down, I'm out of commission, and that's just not acceptable. I'm gonna have to figure something out to replace it. I started looking online for other saws. There's just not a lot of good ones out there. It's kind of like forklifts. People get them and they use them, and when they're done, you can find some good old industrial saws, but you're probably gonna have to make some type of repairs to them. So I just decided to just check out the new ones. I was a little surprised on the prices. A brand new industrial bandsaw, I would say, starts at $5,000. So that's pretty pricey, and they just go up from there. So I was a little shocked on the price, but I figured if this is one of the single most important tools here in the shop, then I might as well purchase the best one that I can afford. And that's what I'm going to be doing. We are going to be replacing this saw with a Hydemech S20. It'll be a manual saw. They offer 3 versions. There's a S20 manual, semi-automatic, and then automatic. And the automatic one, I think, goes up to about $25,000 for that one. So we're actually going to be getting the manual one. And it's actually going to be, I'm going to go pick it up as soon as I finish making this video. So pretty excited about that. We're going to get that in here. We'll do some videos on it and show you what it's all about. But I just wanted to show you some in-depth detail about this DoAll bandsaw before I decommission it. So let's get over to the saw and I'll show you what it's all about. So here is the saw. And like I said, it is a DoAll horizontal bandsaw, and the model on this is a C-4. So if you watch A-Bomb, I believe he has the exact same model saw, and he actually put his on casters so that he could wheel it around the shop, pull it out whenever he needs it, cut off his material, and then just shove it back into the corner. So it's real convenient. And this is an awesome saw. Like I said, it's industrial made, it's made to last. I don't know that there's a year on this one, but it is fairly old. And I made these tables myself. So these are made out of some 1/4-inch angle and some 1/4-inch plate. Built these legs, and then I have adjustable feet down here so that I can make sure that it's perfectly level. And it's worked out well for me. The reason why I made those is because the table on this thing is really small. If you look here, that table's only about 7 inches wide, and so it doesn't really hold much. But when I added a table on both sides, it pretty much held almost everything I needed, and whatever it didn't, I had this little roller stand right here that would just carry the tail end of the stock. So, and then I just did a little back plate on this one that's bolted down so that I could adjust it just to make sure it's perfectly straight. This right here is the stop. So when you lift it up, this is what stops the saw from coming down. Right here is the vise, and I really like this style vise. It's just a quick release, and that it's not super strong on the pressure. It doesn't give a lot of pressure, but it's been just enough. I haven't come across a job where I needed any more pressure than what this vise was able to provide. The blade on this is a 3/4-inch blade. I'm excited. The new saw is going to have a 1-inch blade, so I'm pretty excited to see how that works. The 3/4 has worked out well, but from what I've read, 1 inch is the way to go. 1 inch is just a really solid blade. It really gives you really straight cuts. One of the things with this saw, maybe I just didn't have it dialed in right, but my cuts were off just a little bit, maybe a 1/16 to sometimes maybe even an 1/8 of an inch. The saw would taper, or the cut would taper, which the kind of work I do, like I said, it's not real precision, so it wasn't a real big deal for me. But I'm excited to see how accurate this new saw is going to be. And we have this work stop here, which I use a lot. The only thing about this is I wish it was longer. So it would be really easy to just extend this piece of pipe out and make it longer. I just never got around to doing it. The one downfall about the new saw is it's got a very short stop. So I'm gonna have to figure something out there. I think the stop on that is probably maybe like 15-16 inches wide. And I'm gonna have to either build an additional table or some type of a roller or track or something with another stop on that table independently. So we'll see whenever I get to it. The stop that it comes with is it's a really nice stop. It's going to work really well for the time being, but eventually I'm going to have to extend it one way or another. This saw has I believe this is a 1 horsepower motor here, and it's strong enough. It's been plenty strong enough to do whatever I needed it to do. It doesn't move. I have it on the fastest setting. It doesn't move quite as fast as I would like it to, but it's got the job done. The new saw has a 3 horsepower motor, so that'll be a big adjustment. And I'll show you the pulleys here. Here's the pulley system, and this is how you adjust the speed. These different steps are for different speeds for the blade. So this one here is the smallest, or the slowest speed, and this is the fastest. So what happened is I think that these bolts just came a little bit loose. It caused this motor to shift just a little bit, which caused this beltway to fall off. And you can see it's actually kind of doing it again. You see this keyway here? It's sticking out. And the reason why it's sticking out is because it's forcing pressure on it to slowly drive this little key out. So I'll tap that back in. There you go. I'm sure if I messed around with it long enough, it really does need some different bolts here. I'm sure I could get this thing perfectly aligned, so we wouldn't have that problem again. But I don't have time to mess with it right now. And I thought it was about time that the shop needed a new saw, so we're just gonna go that direction. So one of the things about this saw was originally it came with a magnetic starter, and this is what I really didn't like about this saw, was that the start and stop button was down here, and it was really low. It was just awkward to get to, and this little mechanism here, whenever the saw would land, it would hit this little lever, and it would shut the saw off. It was a mechanical shut off. I mean, it works. I just didn't care for the style of it, and I didn't like the fact that it was way down here. And one of the heaters in the starter actually burned up, and at the time I didn't know where to replace it or where to get another one. So I just took it off, and I ended up wiring it directly to the cutoff here. And I know that's not the best way to do it. It is hard on your knife switches in there, but I've never had a problem with it. It's something that I always wanted to address, just never got around to doing it. And back then I didn't know anything about magnetic starters, so it was just easier for me to just wire it up directly and just get to work. So that was always one of the modifications that I wanted to do, was change how this thing start and stopped. I wanted to get like an emergency start and stop up here and just make it easily accessible, but just never got around to doing that. The other thing that I wanted to do was, you can see down here that you've got these springs and a type of a counterbalance there, so that you can lift the saw up. But you can see how fast, let me lift this up. You can see how fast that saw comes down, and I never liked that. I've always had to baby all of my cuts. I've always had to sit here and actually hold the handle and ease into the cut at the speed that I wanted to. It wasn't a big deal because, you know, at the time I wasn't making a whole lot of cuts. You know, I was cutting a few pieces here and there. But now I'm doing jobs where I'm having to make thousands of cuts. So I've got to be able to set my machine and then just be able to walk away from it. That's the benefit of having a bandsaw. You can set it, you can walk away from it. Whenever it's done cutting, the machine cuts off, you come back, you reset it, and it just starts cutting again. And you can set it at a very slow pace so that you get a very clean and precise cut every time. And I just couldn't do that with this saw. I always had to be here making every single cut. So, and a big reason for that is because of that spring tension. I've got it maxed out, and it doesn't have, a lot of times you'll see a hydraulic shock right here in this area that allows you to adjust the speed that the saw comes down, the speeds and feeds. So this saw I couldn't do that with, and I'm looking forward to being able to fine tune those adjustments and being able to just walk away from the work and go work on something else. So with that, I will make our last cut on the saw. I'm gonna have to look around and see what we should cut, but I'm gonna make the last cut on our DoAll saw. All right, I found a piece of stock I think worthy for our last cut. This is a 4-inch square tubing. I believe that's a 1/4-inch wall. Just a piece of scrap laying around. And I think this will be a nice cut. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this bad boy. And after that, we will be decommissioning the DoAll bandsaw that has served me well. that's it. That's the last cut. You can see this thing. Now I was cutting that dry. It does have coolant, but the coolant's low right now, so it's a pretty rough cut. You got some deburring that needs to happen right here on the corner. As far as the alignment goes, it's not bad on this. So you can see the cut there and some of the sharp edges left over. But as far as the alignment, that's pretty straight. It's not too bad. All right, well that's it. That is the DoAll C-4. We will be moving this out and bringing in the Hydemec S20. And I think I'm gonna utilize this time to go ahead and rearrange my whole shop. One of the problems I've always had is that this saw feeds in from the left. I think most saws feed in from the left. The well saws are kind of different. We were looking into the well saws. They actually feed in from the right. So if this fed in from the right, this would be fine right here. But I think what I'm gonna do is move this to the other side of the shop, move my mill and my drill press to this side of the shop. And that way that the bandsaw will be positioned in the proper orientation so that I can just pull the metal right off the trailer and load it right into the saw, and just makes things a lot easier. So one of the main reasons that I didn't like the well saw and the way that it fed in from the other direction is because my ideal setup would be to have a straight saw, maybe even an automatic saw, I don't know, or maybe a semi-automatic on this side of the shop. That would be your first operation. You'd be able to cut your stock, you'd be able to load it in and make your straight cut. And whenever you make miter cuts, to make a miter cut, I think the easiest or the best or most precise way to make a miter cut, if you're gonna do several of them, is to actually cut the size, the length of your stock first. And to do that, you have to make a straight cut, and then you can shift over to a miter cut. Well, it's a real pain in the butt to have to constantly move the head back and forth to make the straight cut and then make the miter cut, especially if your machine's not set up to do that. So I think my ideal setup would be a 10-foot roller table, and then we would have a saw sitting right here, and then another 10-foot roller table, and then we would have another saw sitting here that would be positioned for mitering, to do whatever mitering that we might need. And then after that, maybe even another 10-foot roller table, so that we could just move that material down the line and just make all the cuts we need, all the different angles we need. That would be my ideal setup. Whenever we get there, I'm not sure, but maybe one of these days. But in order to do that, you got to be feeding in all the same directions. And with the well saw, it feeding from the right side in versus the left side, it would kind of mess up the flow of things. That was one of the main reasons we didn't decide to go with the well saw. The other one is that these Hydemecs, they have really good names. They're really well built, and for the money, for the comparison, I just thought you were getting a better package with the Hydemec than we were with the well saw. So that is it. That's the DoAll. I'm gonna clean up the shop, and then we're gonna go head out and pick up our new saw. So really excited about it. Thanks for joining us. We're gonna make some videos on it, and you're gonna see what these Hydemecs can do. Please like, share, and subscribe. F8N, go build something.